by Bentovish.
Yes.
Okay, Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Thank you for joining. Minatzchim. The ultimate Nitzachim that is discussed in Chassidus obviously is when not only do we have a Gilui Mulmayla Lamata this week in the Parsha Vayere Davai al Har Sinai, but that the Welt itself Shraita Lakus. The Rebbe says Al Tikra Vayikra Elo Vayakri. It's one thing that we run around crying out as the neighbor stuff the Welt. It's another thing that the world itself, Emes may edits titzmach, that from the earth itself the Emes comes forth. So we have the great honor, and we're all excited to have with us Dr. Bentovish, again, I am not big in any science and so on and so forth. So I can't tell you much, but I do know that the idea from even Boif and Makif is exciting me. It's about a new approach to physics and a new understanding of things that is making headways. And obviously, it's as the little bit that I read, it seems to be directly the truths of Shara Yichud Ve'emunah that is being to a certain degree already recognized and accepted by the scientific community. Obviously, like all the inyanim that are happening, Mashiachdig, it's all, as it says, benegay to the Geula, that it's mevatzveitz, it comes slowly, it makes its way outward. So here we have the doctor who wrote a book on this whole concept, and he calls it God's physics. And I think we'll understand much more what this is all about once he talks to us. That's it. It's all yours.
Okay, wonderful. Just before I begin, Rabbi Wolf, I apologize that at 5 minutes to 10 my time, I have to run to meet the head of the newspaper, one of the big newspapers in Israel, about this God's physics. They're probably going to write an articles, but I'm delighted to sit and speak with you, and I'll do the best I can to explain briefly what this is all about, okay? And please direct me if you have questions or you want me to focus on something, let me know. So
we are all ears.
Okay. The book that came out, it's God's Physics. It was published in the US and it's published by iUniverse.com. And by now there's been 60 peer-reviewed scientific articles that came out, 2 special issues. I'm opening international physics conferences about this, what's considered to be the new paradigm of God's physics. It was previously called the Computational Unified Field Theory after Einstein's quest for a unifying field theory. But anyway, it's getting to the point that it's being regarded, and I'll explain to you why this is so important now that we're speaking, because it's getting to the point that it's being regarded as the new paradigm, and it's getting to the point where we can actually contrast, and there's been already initial verifications of this theory as more valid than relativity theory and quantum mechanics. But let me start from the beginning, okay? The issue is that, as you probably know, physics has been in a crisis for the past 100 years. And the biggest unresolved problem in physics is what Einstein has been working on. He was seeking the unifying field theory. And that's the problem that relativity theory, which deals with the macroscopic universe, the galaxies, the stars, etc., seems to contradict quantum mechanics, which deals with the subatomic realm. And I used, I think, a metaphor in God's Physics book just to make it clear. You know, if you imagine, let's say you had a big palace, a beautiful palace, and you had a pilot flying over the palace and taking pictures and seeing this mansion with all the gardens, etc. And simultaneously, you'd have somebody like a photographer sneaking into the palace and taking pictures of the tiles, and he would send you pictures as if it's a hut. It's a rundown hut. Now, you obviously cannot have the same building, you know, telling you 2 different things. Relativity theory is talking about causality. There's the speed of light barrier, so there's a cause and effect. Quantum mechanics, specifically the phenomenon of quantum entanglement, tells us or shows us a situation that it seems to contradict causality. I don't want to get into this into too many details, but they seem to contradict each other, okay? So that's one major problem. The second problem is that the universe, when astronomers and cosmologists look at the universe, at the galaxies, they see that they're drifting apart. They're flying away from each other, and the rate of acceleration in which the universe is expanding and getting apart from each other, the rate of that expansion is becoming quicker and quicker. Imagine a person blowing a balloon, and his inflation of the balloon would become quicker and quicker, okay? Now, in order to explain that accelerated rate of expansion of the universe, physics and the old model of relativity theory, general relativity theory, is missing up to 95% of all the mass and energy in the universe that should have been there in order to explain that accelerated rate of expansion are not there. In other words, when they're looking at the galaxies, the stars, etc., what they find is about 5% of what should have been there. So what physicists have been doing for the past 20 years is assuming that there exists what they call dark matter, dark energy, completely hypothetical concepts. Now, by the way, but they couldn't find it. So over the past 20 years, physics has been assuming there is this dark matter, dark energy, which is most of the mass and energy in the universe, but it cannot be found. And just to let you know, one of the last issues of Scientific American, one of the most famous and lucrative scientific journals, came up with an article. The title was "The Last Stand of Dark Matter, Dark Energy." In other words, science is recognizing the fact that unless very quickly or very soon somebody will be able to detect dark matter, dark energy, the old model of relativity theory is crashing. Okay, so God's physics, initially I called it the computational field theory after Einstein's visionary quest for such a unifying field theory. But anyway, lately it's been called God's physics. So the new God's physics paradigm does something which for us as Hasidim is quite trivial, but for science it's not. The major breakthrough that God's physics has made is that it assumed and discovered the existence of a singular higher ordered universal computational / consciousness principle, UCP as an acronym. In religious terms, Hasidic terms, this would be the Shem's power, okay? But anyway, this universal computational / consciousness principle, the UCP, according to God's physics new paradigm, is computing simultaneously every pixel in the universe. Now imagine a film, and imagine that every trillionth of a second, it's very, very rapid, but in every trillionth of a second, this power of the Shem, or this UCP, is creating the picture, the universal frame of the whole universe, computing everything at the same time. And between one frame and another, the whole universe dissolves back into this UCP, very similar to what Admor Zaken is saying about Otso and Shuv, okay? But in any event, so there's this extremely rapid creation, dissolution, recreation, and evolution of the universe. That's the major breakthrough of God's physics new paradigm. Now, this new paradigm, what it tells us essentially, first of all, it resolves, it can harmonize and resolve the apparent contradiction between relativity theory and quantum mechanics. In a nutshell, it's very difficult to explain it, briefly, but in a nutshell, you may say that relativity theory is looking at a point, like every star is one point in space and time. Quantum mechanics talks about particle and wave, but let's say the wave, which is more than one point at a time. And this God's physics new paradigm is looking at the whole universe, at the whole frame, in which embedded is the point of relativity theory and the wave of quantum mechanics. That's just to make it, generally sort of conceivable. So God's physics new paradigm was able to resolve the apparent inconsistency, theoretical inconsistency between relativity theory and quantum mechanics. Two, it's discovered what I call the universal computational formula, which is one formula. In one side of the equation, there is, I represented, by the way, there is Ashgacha Pratit, obviously, to everything that happens to us. I Chazalti B'Tshuva many years ago, but I started this theory even before that, like 20, 30 years ago. And I represented that universal computational principle, the UCP, with the Hebrew letter Yud. So in this universal computational formula, the Yud, this UCP, or the power of the Shem, is computing is integrating for the first time in physics between the four basic physical features of space, time, energy, and mass. Just to make it clear, Einstein's general relativity theory was able to unify between space and time, energy and mass. Then space and time is curved by massive objects, but it was not a complete unification of space, time, energy, and mass. In this new God's physics paradigm, and specifically in this universal computational formula, it's a complete unification of space, time, energy, and mass, in a sense, as different computations of this singular higher ordered universal computational formula. As Hasidim, I'll just let you know, it's something that touched my heart, so I'm sharing it with you. The Rebbe wrote to Professor Velvel Green. They had a lot of correspondence. In one of the letters, he wrote to him that science is looking to unify between all the forces of nature, which this theory is doing very well. And he said, we know in our Jewish belief that obviously they all have to be unified in such a formula. That's what Einstein was looking for. But the Rebbe said, we also know that such a formula has to also point at Achdut Hashem, at the fact that this power of the Shem is creating everything. And this universal computational formula has done exactly that. It's showing how many trillions of times per second this power of the Shem is computing every pixel in the universe. For every pixel, it's computing space, time, energy, and mass simultaneously. So that's a major advancement. By the way, this new God's physics paradigm challenges and negates some of the basic assumptions of the old model. The old model I call both relativity theory and quantum mechanics. I call it the material causal paradigm. And I'll tell you in a second why it's so important for us, for the Goy, for the world, because it does bring, in a sense, Geula to the forefront of science. But what I wanted to say that it negates, because, I'll try to explain it briefly, because the UCP is computing simultaneously every frame simultaneously, and between one frame and another, the whole universe dissolves back into the UCP. This new paradigm, I call it also a causal computation. In other words, it's telling us there cannot be really cause and effect in the material sense, and because all the pixels, all the points are computed simultaneously. What really exists is the producer of the film, this is the power of the Shem, is arranging a series of frames that give us the impression that there is laws of nature, that there is cause and effect, etc. And the implication from this discovery is that, for example, Darwin's natural selection principle is negated. The Big Bang model as the cause of the universe is negated. So it's a new approach. Now, I want to bring this forward to how this theory is really pointing at Geula and how it's pointing at Achdut Hashem. So the idea is, because I said, and I'll give you just a brief metaphor maybe, imagine that we had, let's say, a glass of, a bottle of glass of water, and you had a hammer, and you'd see in a film that the hammer is hitting the the glass bottle, and breaking it, and then the water is spilled over the table. Now, if I asked you in, naked eyes, what caused the breakage of the bottle and the spillage of the water, you'd say it's simple, it's the hammer, right? But if I slowed down the progression of the film, and you'd see in the first frame, they're close, but not that close, then they become closer. Maybe in one frame, they're touching each other. Still, you'd see that in any of the frames, including the one that they're touching each other, they're being presented simultaneously. Because they're being presented simultaneously, there cannot be cause and effect really in any one of the frames. And remember that between one frame and another, the whole universe dissolves. So what that means is that even though the universe seems to operate by cause and effect, really, there is the producer of the film that's arranging the film in such a manner that gives us the impression that there's cause and effect. It's not philosophical, it's very practical, because what that means is this theory is telling us, and I give a metaphor. Imagine King Solomon, before he built the first temple, he had to take an architect that would present a blueprint before King Solomon of how the temple would look at the end, how the complete, beautiful, immaculate temple, how it would look like, and also of the blueprint of how to build the temple, right? So the idea is, I use this metaphor, I say the same way the universal computational principle, or the power of the Shem, has pre-planned the whole development of the universe from the end result, the end, the tachlis, the goal of the universe, which is Geula. The end goal of the universe, it's evolving from inanimate matter through animate plants, animals, medaber, human beings. Obviously, the Jewish people has the central key role. And then Geula. Geula is that ultimate goal state to which, or from which, actually, that was in the same way that King Solomon imagined or had to have the blueprint of the complete temple, the Shem, or the universal computational principle, planned the whole development of the universe from the end Geula goal state backwards. He's planned it, he's progressing and evolving the universe through the various stages, but the end goal is Geula. And the exciting part about this, first of all, again, it negates Darwin's natural selection principle. It's hashgacha pratit. It's not just interactions like relativity theory. It's just, massive objects curving space-time. No, that's not the way the universe operates. The UCP, or the power of the Shem, has pre-planned and is doing hashgacha pratit for every pixel, for every frame, to lead the universe. With us, obviously, as Jewish people have a central role, and human beings more generally, we are the partners of the Shem in leading the universe towards its perfected goal. And I'll also say one thing that is also quite exciting. It's the first time in physics that we have a moral principle coming in. I call it the dynamic equilibrium moral principle. And it essentially says that the UCP has the bank of all the frames of the universe from the past, present, and multiple possible futures for every individual human being based on our moral choices. And I give the example, just in the book, I give the example to illustrate it. I say, imagine a CEO, driving in his new car to an annual meeting in which he's supposed to get a big bonus. And what happens by hashgacha pratit is that there is, God forbid, there is a car accident, and he sees on the road somebody which is injured, and he knows that he can take care of him and take him to a bet refuah. He has a moral choice. He can say, well, it's not my issue. I'll just call the ambulance. Or he may say, it is my issue, and I'm willing to let go now or postpone that meeting. And the claim is that based on the same way the Rambam is saying that a Jewish person has to see himself as if himself and the whole world is on the balance, and his choice, his good choice, is tilting himself and the world towards a better state. And the Rebbe would say that every mitzvah leads us closer and closer to Geula. But in any event, this dynamic equilibrium moral principle is telling us that essentially at every point in time, our moral choices make a lot of a difference, because the UCP, or the power of the Shem, chooses for us. If the CEO decided to save that person's life, if he decided to save that person's life, the UCP, the power of the Shem, would choose for him an equivalent situation in which his life would be spared, etc. So this new conception is, first of all, revising the way science looks at the world. The world has not been created by a random nuclear event, the Big Bang. It's not running into, nothingness. The world is being guided towards the Geula state, and our moral choices make a big difference. And it's pointing at Achdut Hashem. So that's like in a nutshell, if it makes any sense.
So my obvious big question is, how is this being received? This is what you created. This is what you're giving. How is this being taken in the greater scientific world? Anybody paying attention to this? Is this catching on? Is there a response? That's what
Yes, thank you. That's a very good question. So I divide it into one. It's being taken, notice of, because I'm opening international conferences in physics and astronomy, etc. There's been two special issues by two different journals. These are not Science and Nature. So the mainstream science still needs to be utterly convinced, but science is paying attention to that. It's getting more and more attention. I'm getting, for example, I have through academia, there's like a special forum. I'm getting, for example, notices every week. There's tens of people that are logging in, looking at my articles. Again, I opened international conferences. But the second part is actually, the second part of this is more important. You know, when Einstein's theory, relativity theory, triumphed when Eddington in 1919 did the solar eclipse observation to validate Einstein's critical prediction. Because Einstein's critical prediction about Mercury's curvature, double-valued curvature of perihelion around the sun was different than Newtonian prediction, which was half of that. So 1.6 in Einstein as opposed to 0.8 with Newton. And the minute that Eddington verified that, empirically, overnight, pretty much Einstein's theory triumphed. I'm telling you that now there's a third special issue of mine coming out, which is talking about two initial validations of my theory, which are different than the predictions of relativity theory and quantum mechanics. But still, and this is why I'm very glad to speak with you and see if you can assist me in some form or fashion. But still, at this point, the book coming out, the special issues coming out, interviews. Now I'm at the end of this meeting, I'm running to meet the owner of one of the biggest newspapers, Yediot Achronot, that may put an article about this God's physics. But at this point, you know, from a scientific standpoint, it's reached a point that it's starting to prove that this theory is better than and more valid than relativity theory and quantum mechanics. But I do need assistance in sort of getting it out there to the newspapers, getting it out there through books and interviews, etc. And ultimately, by the way, I'm even considering now the possibility of perhaps relocating to the US, getting an offer from one of the leading universities. But we're at the point that this theory is starting to prove that it's more valid, but I need the assistance, in a sense, to get it out there and to get the collaboration of leading universities, etc.
Rabbi Bell asks, what special issue are you referring to? What else is there beside the book?
So there's been, as I said, 50 now with the new special issue. It's going to be 60 peer-reviewed scientific articles. I'll send you a link or, you know, references. Two special issues mean, a special issue means one, a journal, like an international journal, has decided to take, publish a special issue dedicated only to what's called the New God's Physics 21st Century Paradigm. So there's been two special issues, one by global journals, the other one by another journal. I believe that's actually from India, it doesn't matter. The third special issue is going to be published in the US, and that's a Physics and Astronomy journal. So there's been special issues, and as I said, I'm opening international conferences. The book God's Physics has been published in the US. We need some more publication and, you know, like publicity for that. It's now being published in Israel. It's being published in South America. It has to be translated. But I think the major thing is now two things. One, to get the word out there in interviews, newspapers, radio, etc. Second is to harness one of the leading universities to do the more specific validations. If you want, I'll explain to you two validations that I've published that are already showing that the predictions of this new God's physics is more valid than relativity theory and quantum mechanics. But I think the real makeba patish, the real difference would be when, hypothetically, if I was situated today in one of the leading universities in the US, probably, and that's number one. And number two, and I called, there were articles that I published calling for astronomers and cosmologists to validate. You know what, I'll tell you just in one word. One of the predictions of this God's physics new paradigm for us as Hasidim, it's extremely exciting. I told you that the rate of the acceleration of the universe is being accelerated all the time, and the old model of relativity theory can't explain this because it assumes this dark matter, dark energy, okay, which they cannot find. In my theory, I'm postulating that is the non-continuous leap or changes, leaps in the rate of the universe's accelerated expansion, and I'm postulating and I'm predicting, believe it or not, it's very similar to what Hasidus is saying, that I call it a collective human consciousness focus. I called cosmologists and astronomers around the Jewish Rosh Hashanah New Year 2 days time interval. The last one was September 27th, 28th, 2020. And I called astronomers and cosmologists to test the rate of the universe's accelerated expansion before Rosh Hashanah and from Rosh Hashanah onwards. And I claimed that the rate of the universe's expansion would undergo a non-continuous leap, an increase that would carry on through the whole new Jewish New Year. So far, no cosmologist, this would be parallel, by the way, to what the Mozaken is telling us about the new light that's coming to the world every year. We know that, right? But anyway, that's my prediction. Now, interestingly, first of all, cosmologists and astronomers did not communicate with me and test that, because this would break their model. If it was right, it would completely shatter the whole concept of, dark matter, dark energy, the Big Bang, etc. What was validated is a big riddle, because there is now a big gap. I call it the cosmological astronomical gap in the universe's accelerated rate of expansion. And I don't know if you know that when that has been validated already, but for them it's a riddle. And that is that when you check the rate of the universe's expansion, let's say at the beginning, what they regard as the beginning of the universe, background radiation after the Big Bang. And so when you compare the rate of the universe expansion at the beginning of the universe, again, I don't accept their time frame, but regardless, when you test the rate of the universe expansion at the beginning of the universe, as opposed to now astronomical measures of the rate of the universe expansion, the current rate is higher, significantly higher than the old rate, which is supposedly at earlier stage of the universe. That would conform much more to my prediction about the non-continuous leaps, but it's still not specific enough about the Jewish Rosh Hashanah, which would be, mind-blowing. So that's just an example. If you want me to elaborate, or if you have questions.
Yes. No, now, number one, I would think that the religious community, scientists around the world, would be picking up on what you're saying, and I'm talking, let's say, in the Mahavdal, in the Christian world, they would be people that are more into. Did anybody take notice? Are they getting excited about something like this because it's
indirectly, it seems so, because I get indications of people searching for like keywords and for my profile. And it's interesting that you're asking, because now lately, I've been seeing that there's searches for, consciousness, for, I don't remember the search terms, but these are not just purely, physicists that are looking at it.
No, I'm looking. I was asking about you would say in Hasidus it says that a person's desire influences their seichel. What you want to see is what you're seeing. A lot of people obviously are not looking for God, but then there are those that are looking for God in science. So right. I would say that I would imagine that there would be, and I'm not talking because of the question if this is what we want, but the question is to create enough attention on what you're doing to bring it to the forefront. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking that these would be good vehicles to drive it into more of a center. Yeah, I would imagine that right now you're still on the fringe, you're still on the outside. This has to come in, as you mentioned, has to make its way in to be recognized more in the
Yeah, but I'll tell you something that I think is a very good point that you're raising, because I'll just give you an example, because this is so radical. On the one hand, this theory is answering and resolving the biggest problem, and science is stuck. If Scientific American comes with an issue that says it's the last stand of dark matter, dark energy, that means that even the hardcore mainstream physics is recognizing that it cannot go longer. But so on the one hand, it's resolving the major problem, and it's having predictions that are really showing that this model is better than the old model. But the major point I want to make, Rabbi Wolf, is that I think you're hitting on the nerve here, because I'll just give you an example. When I called one of the astronomers, I think it was in Europe, and I made a series of phone calls, and I called one of the astronomers, and I told him, you know, I want you to read this article and perhaps collaborate with me and test around Rosh Hashanah. You know what his response was? He says, well, the universe is 5 billion and plus years, so it would make no sense. It has no sense, and even it cannot even exist what you're saying about Jewish people, about focus, about so, and he wasn't willing to continue the conversation. Now, what I want to say is that the way I look at it right now, the way I think that this will actually make a major headway is actually, I think, more through the general public awareness and understanding that this is a new, exciting model, scientific model. It's been published, it's been presented. It's not something fringe that, you know, I'm just walking on the streets and talking to people. It has the credentials. I have the credentials. I did my doctorate and postdoc at Brookhaven National Laboratory, 6 Nobel laureates at Claremont University, one of the top 10 private colleges in the US, 60 published peer-reviewed articles. I'm thinking that because this model is it makes such a huge change in science, there's a lot of a vested interest not to allow this breakthrough to come about. But the way to overcome this is 2 ways. One is by hitting the general public, like this God's physics, like newspaper interviews, TV interviews. It's starting to happen, by the way, in Israel, even in the US and in South America. It's picking up because people are hungry and are thirsty to find out a new way of looking at the world, which has scientific basis. The second way is to get the collaboration of 1 or 2 courageous scientists, physicists, astronomers, cosmologists, probably to have me situated and affiliated with a major university. But I'm telling you, I'm not sure that this will not happen first by the general public saying, hey, listen, there's a new scientific approach here. You have to check it. You have to either confront it or you have to accept it. You know what I mean?
A couple of years ago, I had a Gentile fellow that was all excited about my classes, and he is an astronomer. What do they call it? An astronomer. I lost contact with him, but he was very into. He's a non-Jew. His name is Chris. And all I remember is he's Chris something. And he used to go and travel all over, observing on different missions, observing the stars and whatever. He's a what is it called? I don't even know.
Cosmologist, yeah.
Cosmologist. That's his thing.
Okay.
I'll reach out to him just to who knows who he's connected to. I don't know. You know, I'm just it's just a little lead for me that I can do. But I'm thinking if guys over here know people, you never know who we can make connections to.
First of all, I think Rabbi Lipsker from Miami is very into this.
Accidentally, I have some contact with him. I sent him information about this. He's, I think, so busy with his congregation. So far at least, I sent him a video and everything. I also got his name from one of the professors in Israel that knows him. But my sense, by the way, I mean, when this, my sense is that what I need most is to get the public attention of the general public. I think today the crisis of what we're seeing, the COVID, it's not just the COVID. People are have lost any sense of security, of confidence, of how the world is operating. Nothing makes sense anymore. Now, I think that such a book as God's Physics, if it hits, and that's I think my major
When did you publish it first?
It's published now over the last, I'd say, 3 to 6 months. It came out in the US. It's now in Amazon and Kindle and Borders and everything. But I think that now getting, like in Israel, now I'm supposed to meet at the end of our conversation, I'm supposed to meet this head of Israel's newspaper. There's been now a few radio interviews, and people are going very, very interested about this.
So let me ask you a question. If someone like Ben Shapiro would interview you, You know,
That
he's
would
a
be
very
great.
big. You know who he is. He's a big
That's a
talk
good idea.
show. You know,
Yeah,
and
that
he
would be
might take
great.
interest in it. And I know a Chabad shliach who was very close to him, so he might be interested in something like that. That'll give you automatically exposure to millions of people.
Yeah,
He just has to
that
be
would be
willing,
great.
convinced that this would be something that he would like to talk to you about. Something like that would be good. So, Hever around here on this Minatzchim group, if anybody knows influential people like that, or people that have access to people that can take something like this and throw it out and
What
shine
about
the
Dennis
spotlight,
Prager? This might be perk the interest of Dennis.
Dennis Prager would be huge.
Trigger. But again, you have shluchim in Oxford or in the big universities.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
Call them
That would be
directly.
great.
You have a Bazarki,
Huh? That would be
Harvard,
great.
Harvard.
That would be great.
Rizak and
I'll
Harvard.
tell you the truth. I have a sense, it's very, even though we're in the Skype era and Zoom and everything, but I have a sense. I don't know. My intuition tells me that I should. I don't know if I told you. I spent the 10 years in the U.S. I did my PhD and postdoc in California, and then in Brookhaven National Laboratory in Long Island. I have a sense that probably I have to be in the US, and probably people have to start seeing me, interviewing me, meeting professors, like something like that. So I think and also I can tell you now, for example, there's a publication house in Israel that wants to get this book translated. In the US, I'm with iUniverse. There's another publisher even greater than they are. So in a sense, also, if I could raise some funds that would allow me to get these things in motion more than I can, do just by myself, I think that would be very helpful. I think people are asking me, for interviews, but I think that if the books would come out, if there would be interviews, if I could fly over to the US and get this word out. I'll just tell you one more thing, a thought that, because I just had an interview now with one of the radio stations, and they asked me, how do I think this would make a change in the world? And I said, ask the regular person, what everything is made up of. And they would say, like your body, your car, your cell phone. They would say everything is composed of atoms, of matter. And then I'd ask them, how do you know that it's composed of atoms and matter? Did you see atoms? They would say no, but I know scientists have seen atoms. So my answer would be that when this theory hits through, and I'm sure it will hit through, because that's in a sense the fulfillment of what the Rebbe has been telling us. That's part of Geula. Just imagine. So I'm saying, imagine now in a year or 5 years, when science actually tests more specifically one of the predictions and sees, for example, that at Rosh Hashanah the universe accelerate rate really increases, which relativity theory cannot explain, quantum mechanics cannot explain. Eventually, science and then the whole world will start saying, listen, your cell phone is not composed of atoms. Your cell phone is being created and recreated by this divine force or by this UCP. People will start looking at the world. It's like opening our eyes. That's why it's important. And that's why I've devoted now for the past 20 years, I've devoted so much time and energy and money to getting this thing through, because I believe it makes a huge difference. So, everyone has their shlichus, but I feel it's very important. And I'm also very grateful that I can speak with you about it. We can think of ways maybe to advance this anyway. That's I'm very appreciative of that.
A couple of quick questions from the chat. Rabbi Bell wants to know, are the verifications already published?
Verifications, yes. So for example, I have one article that was published about what I call the universe's cosmological astronomical acceleration gap. That's in a sense, and there's another article that I published about the proton radius puzzle. The second verification for this theory is to do with what they call the proton radius puzzle. And that's something about the radius of a proton within a hydrogen atom when it's surrounded by an electron, which is negatively charged, as opposed to when it's surrounded by a muon. They replaced the electron with the muon. They found that when it's with the muon, the altered hydrogen atom with the muon instead of the electron, the proton radius shrinks. and they call it the proton radius puzzle because they cannot explain it by quantum mechanics. My theory, God's physics paradigm, actually predicted, even before this phenomenon occurred, predicted exactly this phenomenon, because according to the God's physics paradigm, the Yud, the UCP, or the power of the Shem, however you wish to call it, but the UCP computes the mass of any particle as the spatial consistency or object consistency across a series of frames, meaning that the muon, which is much more massive, would become, or would be computed, presented much more smaller based on this God's physics paradigm. So that's the second verification. So these two phenomenon have been published already. And I'm telling you, my senses, by getting it out to the general public, getting debates upon it, scientists having to test more specific predictions, because if, just imagine CBS, NBC, whoever, talk show starts talking about, hey guys, there's a new paradigm. This guy has published, he knows what he's talking about, there's new verifications. Somebody from the mainstream would have to come on and say, that's not true. Okay, so test it. You know what I mean? But otherwise, they wouldn't give up, because that means their whole old model, which everybody is sitting on, but it's not working, they'd rather keep it, you know, at a status quo.
You have a website where your bibliography is published that people could check it out with your previous experience in Brookhaven and so on and so forth. If I have a scientist that I would want to send to investigate this, where would I send him?
Yes. Yes, I have it. It needs, see, by the way, when I said that the further, you know, publication would be helpful, but I do everything that I can in my own means. So, for example, there is now, there's a website of academia. They publish, a lot of scientists are using it. So I have there like a special page with many videos, with a lot of the articles. You can send them there, okay? That's
You could
not a
post a
problem.
link, or do you have a bibliography somewhere you could either post here or?
Yes, I'll send you
someone
both the bibliography, and I'll also send you the link to this academia so he can check it. That's where, by the way, I'm telling you that there is tens of scientists every week, new scientists logging in, starting to look at terms. Who is this Dr. Bentovish? What is this God's physics? Well, you know, etc.
Good.
Two things. One is Rabbi Majeski was suggesting taking a tour at Chabad houses.
That's
And
great.
Rabbi Idan says that he wants to know if there's a simple YouTube that can explain this, maybe like a very
Yes.
short.
Yes, I have a lot of YouTubes, and by the way, I'll send you, even if you look at the name, you know, Jehonathan Bentovish, you'll see there's YouTube with tons of, like, a lot of videos. I'll try, I think I have, for example, a video that was the keynote speaker opening talk for Aerospace 2020, 2021, that it was just now in Paris. And I can send that to you. That's half an hour and explaining like the you know, in half an hour explaining the theory, essentially.
Okay, so you could send it to Rabbi Wolf, and we'll send
Yes.
it out to everybody on here.
Yes.
Beautiful. So we want to wish you Hatzlacha in your talk to the Yediot Achranot now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And by the way, if you have any ideas, again, I don't know, you know, I'm not, even though I established a company, because I'm a neuroscientist. Initially, I was a neuroscientist, and I developed a treatment which is effective for Alzheimer's. So I established an Israeli medical device company. Ultimately, there weren't good partners, and I left that company. But anyway, it was a very big success. But I just wanted to ask you if you have any ideas, whether it's of, you know, donors, maybe investors. My major focus is on this God's physics thing. And I would be, you know, it would be very helpful if there was any way of raising some funds to assist me. And also, by the way, that would assist me to potentially consider relocating to the US, because I think my presence, it's not the same thing. That's my sense. So if you have any thoughts, you know, I don't know.
You go
believe
with the
right
name
now- right
Bentovish
now-
or Bentovish? And when somebody wants to Google you, which
Bento-
name do you use?
I think it's under Bentovish, actually. I'll send you the link because I changed my name. It has to do with the ancestors and everything. But I think under Jonathan Bentovish, that will be the major link,
Okay.
and I'll
'Cause
send
I
you.
Googled under Bentovish and there was very little.
Rabbi
Yeah,
Bell,
no, it's Bentovish. The
Rabbi Bell.
YouTube and everything. Yeah,
Rabbi
a lot of
Bell,
articles, by the way.
Rabbi Bell with Professor Brower or something, right, from Montreal. He's
I
also a
have somebody else in mind that's closer to that's in this field.
I don't know, but he's a neuroscientist actually. So in terms of his just thinking of a connection.
Yes,
Well, yeah,
yes.
I mean, it's a different, but
Yeah.
And by
good
the
approach.
way, if you stumble across on the side of neuroscience, if you stumble across, somebody, I have, for example, solutions right now for Alzheimer's, depression, even something very interesting for the COVID, which is an extension of this new paradigm. So if you find somebody who wants to, donate, invest money into this, that would also help me to get this thing much more moving. But I would love to speak with these scientists that you're speaking about.
Okay.
Okay.
I think a major breakthrough would be if you can get onto one of the big talk show hosts like Dennis Prager or Ben Shapiro.
Yes.
That would draw attention by literally millions of people. There are shluchim that have connections to these people.
Okay.
One of the
Wonderful.
things. So, and your book, where do people get your book from? Amazon? If they want to order the book?
Amazon and iUniverse, and I think Borders, and like a lot of different places. I can send you a link, or even in Kindle you can buy it. I'll send you also like a post on that.
It wasn't published in a way that people can just, it would never, I mean, not yet, as Hashem, it will be the hottest seller book, but it hasn't yet ever made it into like bookstores.
No, and that's, by the way, again, if I was fortunate enough, to have somebody assist me, because I have, for example, another publisher in the US that says they can get one of the traditional publishers. It's a matter of like, a little bit of funds and getting it out there more. I think that would make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good. This is very exciting. This is, I mean, we know you're gonna, this is gonna, here's the thing. We know the end goal, like you said earlier. We're starting from the end. We know that the end, this is the emes.
Yes.
and so the question is, who's going to have his chus, and how are we going to have this chus to make this emes be known by the whole world? So and the time is now. So
that's right. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. What time is it? Do we have
it's just about, I have maybe 3 minutes. That's fine. That's good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I guess all the shluchim that are here, we will share. This is recorded, so we share this with the people, with our entire group. Some people will watch later. Maybe some more people will have some more suggestions, and let's see where we can go with it.
I think there's the John Templeton Foundation. The John Templeton Foundation, I think they fund religious scientists, and they also published the book, I think like 20 years ago, actually.
Wow.
How the world, very Mashiachdik, how the world is getting better, and from a scientific perspective, how everything is improving. So you might want to look at the John Templeton Foundation.
I'm thinking
Can you send that to me? Rabbi Wolf, can you send that to me? I'm not hearing that well.
This is Rabbi Majeski. You could send it to the group, and then we'll send it.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Hatzlacha Rabbi Muflaga.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you very much.
This is the right time.
Thank you very much.
Yisroi, the Eibishter said Anoichi Havai Lekecha, and Anoichi came from heaven, from earth, from everywhere they looked. They saw Einoid Mulvada. This is it. Okay.
Okay. Toda rabba.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank
All
you.
right, Rabbi.
Be well. Thank you.
Bye,
Hatzlacha
bye.
Rabba Muflaga.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you all. Bye-bye. Thank
Yes.
you. Shalom.
Take care. Bye. Thank you for joining. On another note, Chevra, the book is the booklet. I'm waiting to hear now just the final price. We're printing Be'ez Shem today 5,000. From Geld. We're gonna have to make a little fundraiser on the thing. We decided that we're gonna pull together the funds for the first print. We're not gonna go crazy. We're gonna print 5,000. That's minimum we should print. But we will. It'll cost quite a bit. Not quite a bit. It'll cost probably close to $5,000. So we need to do a little fundraiser here from everybody. We'll put it on the. We can all together and get this thing done. This will be a.
How much do you have already?
Major thing. What?
How much do you have already?
I don't know. The only so far
So
I didn't
yesterday
count.
you had 4 people, not 3 or 4. What did you have?
Sandy sent already. I have to get from you.
I gave you my. I got you my my credit card.
Okay, so I didn't charge it yet. Okay. First, let me see how much it costs. I'm waiting for him to get back to me on the cost, and then I'm going to put it out, and we're going to see. Litvin also said he's giving 5, so I think we have 15. I think we have 1,500 already, or maybe one more. 1,500 already. So Be'ezus Hashem, we'll probably still need 2,000-3,000.
Where is this a shame?
So what,
On a lighter note, I was listening to his scientific expose, and I felt like this Docher was by a big shir about Hilchot Shabbos, and the Rosh Yeshiva gave a long pilpul and Rahir or Rahar, Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah. Verstanden den ganzen Pilpul, aber wo sind die 2 Rosh Tevis? Hat nicht verstanden. Das habe ich verstanden von seinem ganzen Teil. But I see that Rabbi Bellot ja verstanden, and that's good. I just want to know if I'm the only one or I'm in good company.
What's the kids? What is the connection with Mashiach? That's the main thing.
The
He's
coming to the Indian.
Also kommt zu Brias Elam, zu
Ganz nicht verstanden.
As ein Ebel Vade, no, the David.
Oh, the Brias Olam is happening every second.
Briet Midis.
Briet Midis.
Sabbath Midis.
But what did he say? What are we talking about? Everything's going backwards. I can't say
everything is going back in. Ze wird ois Metzias and rechts Metzias. Also, ze wird, because that's.
No, I think he also meant. I think he also meant that the future is basically Metzias, but you don't see it yet. Is that what he meant?
Yeah, it's like different frames you're putting out. You have all the frames already there before.
It's there already. That's what he was saying. So he's saying it's there. Like the Rebbe was saying, the goal is here. We have to make it. This is amazing Gazach.
By the way, who is this guy? Who found him?
He contacted me a while ago and was sending me videos and trying to get my attention, and I wasn't paying attention to him. But he did. I liked he was persistent. It didn't leave me alone. It didn't stop. Then I said, you know what? Let me share that he should with everybody, so that maybe, who knows, we never know. That's what we're here, where we'll bounce off things, and someone will have a connection and we'll help him out. That's not helping out. This is our avodah.
I'm gonna have to excuse myself, Trevor. I gotta go. Oh,